And one of the things that I really liked about Taubman and McFadden is they didn't rat on people. They didn't say names, and they didn't, they just said there were some things we wanted to have, but they're not here because they got sold. And they could have done a lot worse and named names. We wanted to have this, but they were kind. Because that is a reality among many native artists. There aren't that many Elvis native artists where they can do art, and when someone says, it's a, all right, when you say it's an abeta, he's reached that status. We see it in jewelry, we see it in ceramics, we see it in basketry, even in contemporary time, in painting, where someone's hand becomes recognizable. When you're reaching that echelon of artist, generally when they consent to put something there, you're going to get it. But when you are trying to put something out that's going to be, someone think is their star is rising. There are students who I've seen here that I knew when I saw their first painting, this person is going to do really well. You're taking a chance because they haven't reached that economic viability yet. These are all things to think about as a curator when we're working with human beings as compared to objects, historical objects. So can the works be delivered on time if it's a contemporary? Then you've got your concept proposal. And in this case, this is something that you should have been doing where you're brainstorming ideas to really clarify what is the intent of this project, or the rationale for the project, or the rationale for selecting the various artworks and or artists or objects that you want to pull together for this exhibit. You then want to develop a one-page description that is going to outline the focus of your exhibition, the background and relevant ideas and or overview of the artwork or the artists that is going to be presented. And you want to have a working title. And this title is something that is going to sell the idea to other people, to other backers, whether it be artists, because they are backers by putting work out there for you, or potentially financial backers, or venues, various museums and other cultural centers. So you want a working title. It really does help you sell the idea. And you want, in some way, as best you can, have that title represent the story that you want to tell. So if you have a title, Native American Art in the 21st Century, too broad, too general. Now, it's hard with a working title to get it, but you want something to at least focus on. It's like an attention getter in a speech. The first thing you say that is going to draw someone's attention to that speech, that makes them want to listen, that makes them want to pay attention, that title is important. And in a historical context, that will be the title that people will refer to when you've been a success. So you really want to think about the title. You really want it to in some way encapsulate that story. So you want to consider not only what's called for in the project, both in the scale, how large it's going to be, as well as the scope. What is the focus, all right? How many objects are there going to be? How many artists? Right? And then what is the particular focus? That's what when we're looking at the scope that you're going to use on those objects and artists. Is it going to be new work? Stuff that's produced and exhibited for the first time? Sometimes this is the ideal. Even better when it's new work by an already established artist, because people are very anxious to come and see new work. But also consider, is there a single body of work or a survey of work that you are bringing forth from a defined period of time that addresses an area of interest by the artist or artists in a given period of time? Judith came to me at the beginning of class and said, well, I'd like to do like a retrospective of people who graduated when I was here at IAIA in 1971. And the thing I said to Judith was, well, you got to put it in a bigger context, because 1971 is 1971. What was going on in the world or in United States history at that particular time? So that it connects to something larger. Otherwise, 5 artists from IAIA who graduated in 1971. So, or is it going to be a very comprehensive retrospect. So everyone who graduated in 71, and where are they now? If the project is a group exhibit based on a theme, or a historic, or a contemporary issue, or a trend, or a period of time, right, are you going to include the most recent, the most contemporary work? Is it going to be just that? Is it going to be just the historic stuff? Or both? Often retrospectives do that, show you a continuum of work that was produced by people within a given span of time. Or are you going to be focusing on a particular medium, such as photography, video, or painting, for example? Or are you going to be more wide-reaching? I'm asking you to be a little bit diverse, objects and photos. In 10 years, we'll have enough stuff here that's digital as far as video goes, where that will also be a viable body of work to draw from. And then how many artists and works are going to be included to effectively convey those ideas? So I made the decision for you to keep it doable. But it's still very doable with 5 or 6 objects. And if you're ambitious enough to want to do more, I'm not going to discourage you, but there's some wisdom in that saying, less is more. And I would rather you do a good job on a smaller number of works than a machine gun job on a lot of them. Because it's the process of doing this that we are trying to exact. You also want to think about uniqueness. This is another part of your own creativity. How is the way that you want to present it? How is the theme that you are presenting different from what's already been done on the particular artist, artists, or media, or kind of work, or subject matter? How does the project that you are proposing contribute to the museum, the institutional, and the public welfare? That's going to be a huge selling point, particularly if you're not independently wealthy and you need financial support. How are people going to benefit? There are times, as I mentioned last week, that there are many corporations that want to have their name associated with something very positive in the public good. That's why when you see the Corporation for Public Broadcasting, and this program has been sponsored by Exxon, you'll find out sometimes some of your best backers will be after there's been a really big disaster, all right, because they want to do a lot of cleanup, and that includes cleanup in public perception. Now, I'm not saying go out for companies that cause disasters, all right, but don't toss it out. And then, how can you make, I mentioned this last week, how can you make something that is very familiar to the public seem strange? Show them a new way of looking at an old idea. Or if it's something that they have not encountered before, how can you show that this new work relates to what they've already experienced, seen? But they're doing so now within a unique and new set of eyes. As we talk about project support, is it going to be appropriate that you will have it in a single venue and achieve support from a single venue? Or do you need support from a number of venues, a number of producers? If it's going to be expensive, all right, how can those expenses be distributed across several supporters? You often see that distributed in the form of a traveling exhibit, so that if someone is putting up money for it, then they're also going to have the opportunity to show it in their venue, such as the Changing Hands. What other museums and galleries, other organizations can be brought into the mix as potential support? And what do they stand to gain? You need to be able to think when you are selling this idea how you can present this to the director, whether it be Patsy Phillips, how the Mokna Museum stands to benefit by having this exhibit there. What do they stand to gain? And then when you are writing the proposal, now we're moving a little bit more into what you're thinking about before we get to the mechanics. So I'm going to talk about some of the how-tos in just a moment. So you want to find the museum or the gallery that is specializing in the art, the style you're proposing, because museums have mission statements.